Begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis at the Mishnah on the bottom of the Yomud. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Haya Rachak Mi Beis Askila Arba Ames. We're discussing taking out a person for the fee of Misa being stoned to death. So when he goes outside and he comes to the house, to the place where the Misa of Skila will be given, 4 Ames away, then Mafshita Noisai as Begodov. They remove his clothing in order to give him the Chi of Misa. Ha'ish machasa noisai milofonov. Now the man, he has to be covered in the front by his erve in order not to expose himself completely. And v'ha'isha, and by a woman, milofonea umacharea. She has to be covered from the front and from behind as well, because it's considered to be a erve both milofonea and acharea. David Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that even by a isha, the halacha of stoning of the Chi of Misa, that they have to be undressed, applies both by the ish and the isha. However, Chachamim say, Ha'ish niskal adam. Only the man, the skila is done when he's undressed. But the eina isha niskal saruma. But the woman is not, the chi of the skila is not done when she's undressed. She is dressed. But the Rishonim say that dressed with a very light garment, and as we'll see in the Gemara, that one of the main points of why they undress the person is that in order that the misa should be quick and not painful as it could be if he's dressed with coverings and garments that he won't die as quickly. Okay, so the Gemara brings here the source of this. Tan Rabbanon, we learned in Abraisa. Ha'ish mechasen oisei perek echad melofana v'isha shnei prakim beim lefonea beim lachrea. By a man, he's covered. He has to be undressed, but he's covered in the front, he's covered the erva. And by a woman, she has to be covered in the front and behind, mipnei shekula erva, because both in the front and behind, it's erva. David Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. But so again, as I said, the point of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is that the halacha of stoning to be undressed applies by a man and by a woman. However, Chachamim say, Ha'ish niskal adam. The man is stoned when he's undressed, but not by a woman. By a woman, she remains dressed. Says the Gemara, what's the source of the Rabbanon's opinion that it doesn't apply by a woman? Answers the Gemara, because the pasuk says, "V'rogmu oisai," that he, using a lashon zacha, that he should be stoned. So what do we learn out from this pasuk? My oisai. Why does it say here that he should be stoned to death? If you're going to say the pshat here is oisai v'loy oisa, it means only him and not her. It excludes a woman. That the misa of skila does not apply to a woman. But that can't be, because v'haksiv, there's another pasuk where it says v'haitseisa esa ishau esa ishai, that you take out the man or the woman. So you clearly see that the chi of skila that continues there in that pasuk, uskaltim, it says there, applies by a man and a woman. Hello, so therefore I explain, my oisai, what does it mean when it says oisai, him? Oisai b'loi ksusai. Oisai means that he's stoned to death, only him, his physical body, without wearing any clothing. So that refers to, that's one drasha from the pasuk oisai. And then we say, ha, oisa b'ksusai. But when it comes to the woman is not stoned to death, oisa, just her body alone, but she is dressed. Right, so according to Rashi's pshat in the Gemara, there are 2 different points that we're learning out here from this pasuk. The word oisai is coming to say the very point itself, that the chi of misa of skila is to be done when the person is not dressed. And then because it uses the lashon zachar of oisai and not oisa, it also means that it applies only to the man and not to the woman. That's Rashi's pshat. Tosfos learns differently. Tosfos says that the fact that by a woman she's not stoned when she's undressed is misvara. Okay, so we'll see in the continuation from the Gemara. This is Rabbanon. Rabbi Yehuda, however, Rabbi Yehuda says, Oisai b'loi ksusai. When it says Oisai, that he is stoned without any of his garments, Loishna ish v'loishna isha. Doesn't make a difference whether it's the man, whether it's the woman, the same thing applies. The whole entire Torah is written b'lashon zachar. So over here, when it says Oisai, it doesn't exclude the woman. It's saying Oisai comes to teach that you stone the body without wearing garments. The first drasha. But the second drasha, to exclude the woman, that Rabbi Yehuda says does not apply. Okay, so now the Gemara says, based on this machlokes, what do we see here of these 2 opinions, Rabbanon and Rabbi Yehuda? Shall we say that Rabbanon chayshi lehirhura, that Rabbanon, the reason why they say that a woman should not be stoned when she's undressed is because they're concerned about the people that are there, the bystanders that will see her undressed, and this will bring them to illicit thoughts. That's the reason. That's what Rashi explains, even though the Gemara before brought that according to the Rabbanon, there's the drasha from the Pasuk that it applies only to the man and not to the woman, that has to be stoned without the clothing. So it's a drasha of a pasuk. Why would I say that it's based over here on this svara that the Rabbanon are chayish le'irhure? So Tosfos says, based on what the Gemara is soon going to say, that there's another reason besides what it says in the pasuk. Misvara, it would be logical that you should undress when you give the chiyuv misa in order that the person should die as quick as possible, should be as painless as possible. So over here, even though in the pasuk it says oisai regarding the man, and it doesn't say it regarding the woman, but misvara, we should have said that the same should apply by a woman as well, in order that she should die as quickly as possible. So the fact that the Rabbanon say that we don't say so misvara, the reason is because chayish le'irhura, because we're concerned of what people are going to be thinking when the woman is stoned undressed. That's according to the Rabbanon. Rabbi Yehuda, however, according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, lo chayish le'irhura. Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about the thoughts of the people that are seeing this, and therefore you could stone her even when she's undressed. That's what it comes out from what it says in the Mishnah here. One second, let's just do this. So the Gemara asks a contradiction on this. We see from another place, and regarding the woman of a saita, so we see that their opinions about this point is actually the opposite. Because the Mishnah says in Masechta Saita that by the Saita, so this is the woman that has been warned, and after a warning, she's been secluded with someone that's not her husband. So then, in order to find out whether she had a relation with him or not, so she's brought into the Azara, and she has to drink the waters of the Saita. So there the Mishnah says, HaKayin oiches b'bagadeha. The Kayin grabs her onto her clothing, and this is by her throat. Im nikru, if her clothing tears, it tears. Vim nifrumu, if it tears even further into small pieces, it tears. Acher megala esliba, he uncovers her all the way down to her heart. V'saisa esaira, and he also uncovers her hair, or if her hair is braided nicely, he uncovers it and unties it. This is the Rabbanon. So what do we see over here? That according to the Rabbanon, they're not concerned about exposing the woman. Rabbi Yehuda, however, Rabbi Yehuda says, that if her heart, if she's beautiful, then they would not expose her. If her hair is beautiful, they would not untie it and expose her hair. So what do we see over here? That the opinions of the Rabbanon and Rabbi Yehuda are the exact opposite. Right? So over here, according to the Rabbanon, it says that they would expose her, even though there are people there that are seeing, that are watching. And over here it said that according to the Rabbanon, the woman is not going to be stoned when she's undressed. And Rabbi Yehuda, the one that said over here that the woman is going to be exposed, over here Rabbi Yehuda says that no, we have to be careful not to expose her. Okay, so the Gemara explains, Amar Rabbe, the answer to this is, Hasam, over there, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda says that you can't expose her, because over there, in that case, this woman may come out to be innocent. She drinks from the waters of the Saita, so if she had a relation with that man, so then she dies. Her stomach bursts and she dies. But if not, then she comes out zakai, and then if she was exposed, then the young kohanim that was standing around may then come and follow her and be drawn to her because she was already exposed in front of them. But over here we're talking about a woman that's being taken out to be stoned to death. Hamiktala, she's being killed. So even if she was exposed, we're not afraid that the people that are there are going to come and be drawn to her. Now, if you'll argue and say, Asil is Garuye Bachrenaisa, that because they saw her, this woman that was stoned to death, undressed, so then this may bring their Yetzer Hara out regarding another woman. So the Gemara says on that, Omar Rabbe says, Gemiri, we have a tradition, Ein Yetzer Hara Shailet Ela B'ma She'ein of Royes, that the Yetzer Hara does not have a power over the person only regarding what the person sees. And Tosfos over here adds that this is only if it's a woman that you don't know her, you don't know who she is. But if it's biyoida or makira, if it's a woman that you know, then if you see one, the Yetzer Hara could be ma'ated a person even to someone else. That's what Taisus clarifies here. And there's also, obviously, there's the pasuk of Leisasura Achlelavavchem Vachrei Einechem. But over here we're talking about fulfilling a mitzvah, to fulfill the mitzvah, to give her the Chi of Misa, whether by the Chi of Misa or whether by the Saita. So in this case, the Gemara is saying that the tradition is that if it's this woman, then the Yetzer Hara could have a koyach if later she survives by the Saita. But by the moment that you give her a Chi of Misa, it's not going to have any effect on the person when you're doing this mitzvah for another woman. And Yetzer Hara Shein of Rayis.
It would seem that the reason why it's a spectacle when these people go there and view it is because Kol Yisrael Yishmu V'Yirau.
Yeah, correct. That's what the pasuk says. Correct. Yeah.
But because the truth of the matter is, it should be a private thing.
Correct. Yeah, the pasuk says that. Yeah. So okay. So this answer that Gemara just gave here, that Rabbi just said, explains the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Why Rabbi Yehuda says that over here by the Chi of Skila she's undressed, and by the Saita he's concerned about this. That if Liba Noah, then you should not expose her. So the Gemara says on this, Amar Rove, the Rabbi Yehuda Kashya, the contradiction is only in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The Rabbanon loy Kashya, but the contradiction, the Rabbanon's opinion is not a contradiction. According to the Rabbanon, it's the opposite. Dafka over here by Skila is where we're concerned and she has to be dressed. And over there by the Saita, the Rabbanon are not concerned. And she could remain, or she could be exposed even. Elo Amar Rove, so therefore Rove explains, and he answers the Rabbanon's opinions as well. The Rabbi Yehuda loy Kashya, the contradiction of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is answered Kedushanan, as Rabbi answered it. The Rabban Nami loy Kashya, the answer for the contradiction in the Rabban's opinion is as follows. That Omakra, the pasuk says regarding the Saita, the reason why the Kayin has to pull her garment and expose her here, because Vinivasru kol anoshim v'lo yisasena kizimas cheno. That all the women that are there, that see what's done to her, so they should see what happens to a woman that does not behave in a tznius manner, and they should see her embarrassment, and therefore they will learn from this to be careful themselves. Now, this includes whether she actually had a relation with this man, or even if not. But she went and she was secluded with someone after she was warned not to. That itself is an act of pritzas. So she deserves this embarrassment, and for the other women to learn from this, to understand how not to behave. That's why over there, according to the Rabbanon, it's necessary to do this. However, in our case, when this woman is being stoned to death, ein l'cha yiser gadol mizeh. For the people that are coming and are seeing what happens to this woman that deserves a chi of skila to learn from this, so it's not necessary to have this further embarrassment because she's being stoned to death. That's enough for the people to see, to understand that they shouldn't follow and do how she did. If you'll argue and say, levid batarti, maybe in order for people to learn, maybe both should be done. She should be embarrassed by being undressed and also stoned to death. Says the Gemara, Omar Rav Nachman, Omar Rabba bar Avua, Omakro. The pasuk says, V'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha. What does it mean, V'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha? Brorloi misi yafe. That even this person on such a level, this woman, that's being given a chi of misa, but nevertheless the kamoicha is that you should choose a misa yafe. Do not embarrass this woman when she's being stoned to death. Since everyone could learn already from this that they see, that she's being stoned, not to behave like her, so the additional embarrassment is not necessary. The mitzvah of Ahavta l'reacha kamoicha applies over here. Okay, so now this is the explanation for the Chacham's opinion, V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, why we don't embarrass her. So based on this, the Gemara says, if so, leime the Rav Nachman tanoi. So maybe we could say that what Rav Nachman just said is actually a machlokes tanoim, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, we actually do embarrass her. She is undressed. So apparently Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about this V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, that we shouldn't embarrass her. And says the Gemara, like, the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, whether she's going to be embarrassed by being undressed, is not based on whether the V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha applies her or not. The Kula Alme Islu de Rav Nachman. Everybody agrees to Rav Nachman that the V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha applies in this case as well. But V'hacha b'haka miflagi. Here the argument between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda is as follows. Mar Savar, the Chachamim hold, B'zyayni de inish adifa leitfei minicha de gufei. The embarrassment of a person is more important to him than the extra pain that he might have physically in his body. Meaning he'd rather be dressed, the woman here in this case, would rather be dressed, and even though that means that it may slow her death, that she's going to suffer more physically, but still she does not want to be embarrassed. And therefore, the v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is that she should not be embarrassed. But Umar Savar, however, Rabbi Yehuda holds, nicha de gufei adif mibizayni. That no, the body, the pain that she'll have physically is more important to her than the fact that she's going to be embarrassed. And therefore, we undress her in order that she should die as quickly as possible. And therefore, the v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is fulfilled in that way, even though she's going to be embarrassed. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Beis Haskila, Haya Gavoya Shtei Kaimis. The height of the place from where the person is pushed off from, that's the first step of skila, is that you take him to a high place and he's pushed down, so it has to be 2 stories high. Shtei Kaimis. And that's also, so the 2 stories high is each one of the stories has to be, how high does it have to be? It has to be 3 amas high. And then besides that, the height of the person himself, that's sort of a 3rd story. When he's pushed down and he falls, it's like he's falling from a place that's 3 stories high. Now, Echad Menei, one of the witnesses, Doichfay al Masnaf, pushes him by his masnaf, by his thighs, or from behind. He pushes him from behind. And then he falls down. He falls down and he falls on his heart. In other words, face forward. So then, hoifchai al masnav, they turn him over on his back, and according to one opinion, they turn over to see if he actually died. Ve'im meis ba, and if he died just by the fall, by the impact of the fall, yatsa. So then the mitzvah of the chiyuv misa, just by pushing him down and him falling, is fulfilled. Ve'im lav, if not, hasheni, the second aid comes, Evan, he takes a rock that was prepared there, and he throws it on his heart, and then this immeis, if then he died, but with throwing it on his heart, yatsa. And then they were yatsa the chiyuv misa. Ve'im lav, and if he did not die yet, rigi masay b'chol Yisrael. All the other Yidden that are present there have to take additional stones and stone him to death. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Yad Eidim tiye boy b'rishayna la misay. The hand of the Eidim is the one that do first to kill this person. One aid to push him down, and the next aid, if he didn't die yet, to throw it on his heart. And if he still didn't die, then all the people throw rocks at him afterwards. So Tana, we learned in the Braise, what does it say here? The 2 stories of the height from where he's thrown down. So now, you add also the height of the person himself, harekan shalish. So he's being thrown down from a place which is 3 stories high. That's the impact of the fall. But is it necessary to throw him down from such a high place in order for him to die? I'll ask you from the halacha that it says regarding a person that digs a pit in a shusarabim, and an animal falls in there, and it dies, and it's your responsibility to pay for the damage that happens. So now it says regarding this, that only if this pit is 10 tfachim deep, then it's your responsibility. Ma boy, just like a plain boy, shukidei lahamis, that it's able to cause death for an animal that falls into such a deep boy. So what is that? Asar tfachim has to be 10 tfachim deep for the animal that falls inside to die. Avkol kidei lahamis asar tfachim. So too, when a person is obligated to pay for the damage of the death of an animal that falls into a pit, it's 10 tfachim. But if it was less than 10 tfachim, so you didn't dig a pit deep enough to cause this damage, this death, so you're not going to be responsible for that. So what do we see here? 10 tfachim is a height that if you fall there, the way an animal falls, if an animal falls like face forward, 10 tfachim is not so deep at all. If you fall in and you trip and you see where you're falling, so then it's maybe not going to cause a death. But if you push down and you fall into a place which is 10 tfachim, the impact of 10 tfachim is enough to die. So why over here is the chiyuv skila that he has to be 2 stories and the height of the person for that impact? The pasuk says, again, the pasuk we quoted before, that you should love another Yid, and it applies even regarding this, that even the Torah gives the chiyuv misa. Even here, though, it should be done a misa yafa, that he should die as quick as possible, it should be as painless as possible. That's the misa yafa, that if he dies by an impact that's not so high, so then he won't die immediately. But here, though, from the impact itself, he'll die right away, and that's the misa yafa. So if this is the case, so then lig bitfei. So maybe we should throw him down from an even higher place, so then we'll be sure that he'll die immediately. Says the Gemara, no, mishum de minvul, because if you'll throw him down from an even higher place, so then it could be very despicable that his body could break apart, and we don't want the person to be disgusting in this way, what he doesn't deserve. Again, because the chiyuv of broile misi yafe, the haftal racha kamaycha applies even to such a kind of yid, even over here in this case. Then the Mishnah said,
the miss is called stoning.
Yeah.
So why you bring in the thing of throwing?
So the Gemara is going to bring the pasuk. Let's see. Echad min eidim doichfai. So now one of the eidim push him down from this place, from this 2 stories high. So Tana Rabbanam, we learned in the Braise, minayin shebitchiyah. From where do I know that he has to be pushed down from this high place? So the answer is, it's a pasuk that describes the chiyuv skilit. Hamad leima yara. So the pasuk, this is actually written by Matan Torah, when it says that nobody should go up and nobody should touch the mountain. It says, "Leisiga bayad." Then the pasuk says, "Ki sakel yisakel," or "Yara yiyara." So "Yara yiyara," yara means that he's pushed down, he's thrown down. And from where do we know that if he didn't die after he was pushed down, that then you throw a stone at him? And that pasuk it says also sakel, which means and additionally the skila. How do you know that both, if he didn't die just by the chiyah, then it's both skila both together? It says both expressions in the pasuk. That means that if you didn't die with one, then you do the other as well. You push him down, and then also additionally throwing a rock at his heart in order that he should die. And from where do I know that if you die just by the impact that you pushed him down, so yotza, that's enough, and it does not have to be stoned at all. Talmud leima oy yada yada. The pasuk is saying either he's pushed down or you stone him. So from the word oy, you see that one without the other is also good. Now, from where do we know? As I mentioned, this is a pasuk that it says by Matan Torah. But how do I know sha'af l'doiris came? That what is described over here applies for the chiyuv of skila in future generations as well. Talmud leimar is because the language of the pasuk is sakel yi sakel. It uses a future tense, and the same with yara yi yara. It uses a future tense which refers to future generations. That this is how the chiyuv of misa of skila is done. Now the Mishnah said v'im lav. If he did not die yet from the impact when he fell, the second aid comes and takes a rock and throws it on him. So the Gemara asks him this, he takes this rock himself, but Vatanya, in a Braise we learned, Rab Shimon ben Elazar said, there was a rock there that was very heavy. Masli shnei b'nei adam. It could only be lifted up by 2 people together. And Noitla v'noisna liboy, and that rock that has to be lifted up by 2 people, he takes it and he throws it. He put it on the heart of the person that has to be killed, and then imeis ba yotza, and if he dies with this, he yaitza. So you see here that you can't say one person, the aid himself, picks up this rock. It's a very heavy rock. The Gemara says, well, look into the lashon of the Braise itself. That Rab Shimon ben Elazar says here, according to your question, tikshalach hi gufa. You should have a problem with the language that Rab Shimon ben Elazar says. Masli shnei b'nei adam. It says that the rock is heavy enough that only 2 people can lift it up, and then it says neitla v'noisna libay. Then it says a singular term that he, the witness himself, he takes it and throws it at the heart of this person. So how do you understand this lashon of Rab Shimon ben Elazar? So hello, the answer for this is the midli law bahadi chavrei. It's picked up off the ground together with someone else. But then v'shadi law ihu. But the one that actually throws it with a force on this person is only the aid himself. Why? In order that it should come with a great force. When 2 people throw a rock together, it's impossible that both of them should release and put their force into the throwing at the very same second. So while one is throwing, the other is still holding on to it, so it doesn't come with a very strong force. Over here, we want that he should die by this rock, so he shouldn't be painful. He shouldn't have to throw additional rocks at him. So therefore, the aid himself, he's the one that throws it himself, and should go with the greatest force possible. So then the Mishnah said that if he doesn't die, then it's necessary to have all the other Yidden stone him to death. It was never necessary that additional people, the other Yidden, should have to stone him to death as well. So how does Mishnah say that the other Yidden will stone him to death? The Braise says that this was never necessary. So the Gemara says it's not a question of the Mishnah. Mika mineh da Ovid. Did the Mishnah say that this was actually done this way? The imitzrach ka mineh. All the Mishnah said is that if it's necessary, it would be done. But in actuality, it was never necessary. Amar, in the lashon of the Mishnah is, or the lashon of the Braisa actually that we quoted before was Even Hoisacholo. There was this rack, so it seems like that there was this rack that was designated for this, and it was there, and they used it for one person, for another person, but it was always a rack designated for this. But the Gemara asks is, Vatanya, but in Abraisa we learned Achas Even Sheniskol Ba. Both the rack that the person was stoned to death with it, and then afterwards his body has to be hung, so that piece of wood that he was hung in it, or the sword that he was killed with it, or the handkerchief that was used for Chanukah, kulon nikbarin imay, has to be buried together with the person that was killed. So we see that you can't say that there's a rack that's designated for this, that is heaven hoisa, that there was this rack there that they prepared. It's not, the rock was already taken away, it was buried with another person. And says the Gemara, after they bury the rock with this person, so then they immediately prepare another one that should be available if the Chiyuv Misa has to be done again. They bring another one in its place. And that's why with Even Hoisa, it's not the same rock that was used for someone else, but it was another rock that they replaced and they had available there. Now the Gemara asks, it says that you bury the rock or the other materials that were used together with the person. But Vatanya, in another Braisa we learned, it's actually not buried together with him. Rav Papa answers, my imay bitfisasa. Imay doesn't mean literally together with him, but it means it's buried with him within the Daled Amis where they bury this person. And the Rishonim say the reason that it's buried is that we don't want to have these materials, these objects that anyone should say, oh, this is the rock that killed so and so. You want to bury it that it shouldn't be here at all. Okay, the Gemara now begins a new halacha based on what we learned in the Mishnah. Amar Shmuel said, Nikta Yad Ha'edim. As it said in the Mishnah, who is the one that has to give the Chiyuv Misa to the person? It says in the pasuk, Yad Ha'edim Tiyabay Barishayna. The Edim, the witnesses, they are the ones that give him the Misa in the beginning, whether to push him down or whether to throw the rock on the person. So now what happens if the Edim, after they said their testimony in the Bezdin, their hand was amputated. So now they don't have a hand to give him the Chiyuv Misa. So potter. So then he's going to be potter of the Chiyuv Misa. My time, what's the reason? Because you have to fulfill what it says in the pasuk literally. The be'ina yad ha'edim tiyabay barishayna. You have to fulfill, as the pasuk says it, that the hand of the edim has to be the one that kills him first. Veleka. So if his hand is amputated, so then there's no hand that can do this. Okay, so now what did Shmuel say here? Shmuel said that the Eidim testified and they had their hands, but then afterwards, after the testimony, now when it comes to fulfill the punishment of the Misa, their hand was amputated, now they don't have a hand to do this. So Ela Mayata, but the Gemara asks, if you're darshaning the words Yad Eidim, if so, Eidim Gidmin de Meikare, Hachanami de Psili. Why is Shmuel talking about a case that they had their hands when they testified and later was amputated? Eidim that had their hands amputated already from before, they should not be able to testify about this because they can't give him the Chiyuv Misa. And says the Gemara, no, we don't say it in that case. Shani Hasam, it's different over there. The Amakra Yad Eidim Shahaisa Kvar. It says in the pasuk Yad Eidim, the hands of the Eidim, which means that the hands that the Eidim already had. Meaning that these Eidim had a hand before. Now, when they want to give the Chiyuv Misa, they don't have a hand anymore. That's when we say that they're not going to be able to give him the Chiyuv Misa, and the person that's Chayiv the Misa is going to be Potter. But if they never had their hands from before, that's not what the pasuk is talking about. In such a case, according to Rashi, it's mashma from the Lashon Rashi, if these are Eidim that did not have a hand in the first place, they can testify, and they will also have to be the one to give them the Chiyuv Misa in the beginning, even if they can't do it mamash with their hands, they'll have to do it some other way, but in such a case, we're not mamayit from the pasuk. The miyat is Yad Ha-Eidim, if the Eidim that had their hand in the beginning, they have to have a hand later on to give the Chiyuv Misa. Okay, so the Gemara asks on this, Meisvei, the question is, it says in the Mishnah as follows, anytime you have a case where Eidim testified about a person that is Chayiv Misa, and now what happened? That Bezdin, that it was testified in front of them that this person is Chayiv Misa, the Chayiv Misa was not done to this person. Let's say this person ran away. So now in any other Bezdin where they would come and testify about this person again, and they come and say, Mi'idinanu, we are testifying, Be'ish Pliny, about this individual, Shenigma Dinai Bebezdin Pliny, that the verdict was already handed down in another Bezdin, Uplaini Eidov, and so were the witnesses that testified against him, and we are now coming and testifying that we saw that testimony, and we saw the verdict, and this person is Chayiv Misa. So Harezeh Yaharik. So now this person will be put to death. What does this mean? The original Eidim that testified against this person, it seems like from this Mishnah, they're not here anymore. Now it's a second set of Eidim that are coming and testifying in a different Bezdin that we saw that he was already, there was a verdict of Misa in a different Bezdin for him. Now, according to Shmuel, you need to have the original Eidim in order for them, Yad Eidim Tibay Barishayna, in order for them to give him the Chiyav Misa. If you're telling me if even just a hand is amputated, he's going to be potter, definitely if the original Eidim are not here, you can't give him Chiyav Misa by anybody else. Tergem Shmuel, so Shmuel translated and explained this Mishnah according to what he said, Behein Hein Eidov, that it's actually the very same Eidim that are now coming to a second Bezdin again to say that we already testified against this person and now they're coming again to another Bezdin to testify against him. Right, so in the Lashon of the Mishnah, it's actually not so smooth. The Mishnah says that they say Uploini Eidov. But according to what Shmuel is saying, some Rishonim say you have to change the Lashon of the Mishnah, that they're saying, and we were the Eidim that already testified about him. And only then could you give him the Chiyav Misa. Okay, huh?
Why should run away and go second?
The person ran away. He ran away. Huh? No, the person that was Chayiv the Chiyav Misa ran away. So now they follow him. They're following him to a different Bezdin, and they're testifying about him again that they have to give him the Chiyav Misa. Okay, now what's the basis of what Shmuel said here? When it says in the pasuk, Yad Eidim Tiyabay Barishayna, the pasuk has to be taken literally that the hands of the Eidim are the ones that they have to give him the Chiyav Misa. If they don't have a hand, then they can't give him the Chiyav Misa. Fragt the Gemara, do we darshan a pasuk? Do we understand the pasuk to this extent that it has to be fulfilled literally? That it has to be a hand. You can't say that the Eidim can give the Misa in another way without a hand. It has to be mamish literally the hand of the Eidim. But Vatanya, the Gemara brings an example of another case where we see that what it says in the pasuk also regarding a Chiyav Misa does not have to be fulfilled literally. Because it says in the pasuk, you must mahamaka reitzeyachu, a reitzeach, a murderer that's chayiv misa, so you have to give him the chayiv misa, which is saif with a sword. Now, ainli ela b'misa ksuva. But I would think that you could only kill him with the misa that the Torah says by him, which is saif. Minayin, how do you know that if it's impossible to give him the chiyav misa that the Torah says, that you can kill him in any other way as well, not only with saif. That you give the chiyav misa for this person, for this ritzayach, mikol mokem, in any way, not only the literal translation of the pasuk where it says that it has to be with a sayif. So you see here that even though the pasuk says that the chiyav misa is with a sword, but nevertheless it doesn't have to be done dafke in this way. It doesn't have to be literally the way the Torah said. So we may be here as well by yad ha'edim. It doesn't have to be only literally with yad ha'edim. Answers the Gemara, no shani hasam. Over there it's different. As we see, the Braisa says the omakra. There's an extra pasuk where there's a drasha here. Mois yumas, the double lashon of mois yumas comes to say that by the case of a Reitzeyach, even if you can't give him the Chiyav Misa, the way Torah describes it, you can give him another Chiyav Misa. But in another case where you don't have the extra words, the pasuk does have to be taken literally. Now the Gemara asks on this, if so, v'ligmar minei, shouldn't we learn out from here, from the Reitzeyach, that the same should apply by any Chiyav Misa, that if you can't give that Chiyav Misa, the Torah says that you can kill him in another way. Says the Gemara, no, we don't learn out from the Reitzeyach. Why? Mishum dahava Reitzeyach, v'goyel adam, Shnei ksuvim abom kechad, by the Ritzeyach, which is a person that killed b'mezid and he's chayiv misa, and the goyel adam. So according to Rashi, the goyel adam that the Gemara is talking about is a person that killed b'shoigig. And there, by the goyel adam, in the simple pshat of the pasuk, it says that it's a relative that wants to avenge the blood that this person spilled and he wants to kill him. So in both of these cases, these are shnei ksuvim, these are two psukim where we see that the Torah says that the chiyav misa here is not only literally the way the Torah describes it, and because the Torah says this chiddush only regarding these two cases, of a chol shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad ei melamden. The rule is if the Torah repeats the same concept twice, that means that the Torah doesn't want you to learn out to create a binyan av that it should be a source for anywhere else. Because if it wants it to be a source for anywhere else, it would say it only once. If the Torah says it twice, that means that it's only here and not anywhere else. Okay, so now where do we see that both the Ritzeyach and the Goyel Adam is an exception, that only here the Torah is saying that the Misa is not only done literally as the Torah described it? Ritzeach Hodam Maran. The Ritzeach is, as the pasuk said, Moist Yumas, not only with Sayef, but in any other way as well. Goyal Adam Mahi, where do we find this regarding the Goyal Adam? Tanya, we learned in the Braise, the pasuk says, Goyal Hadam Yomis Esaritzeach. The Goyal Adam, he wants to avenge for the blood. He's the one that could kill this murderer. So as I mentioned, Rashi says we're talking about a Goyal Adam regarding someone that killed B'Sheigig. Other Rishonim don't disagree with Rashi. Many Rishonim say that we're talking here about a Goyal Adam that wants to avenge the blood of someone that killed B'Mezid, because it applies also by Mezid, and the simple pshat of the pasuk is talking about a Mezid. So the Gemara says, Mitzvah B'Goyal Adam. So from this pasuk we learn out that it's a mitzvah for the Goyal Adam to avenge the blood of to kill this person. How do we know if there is no relative that would be that person that would be the Goyal Adam? That Bezdin could appoint someone else, even that's not a relative, that could avenge for the blood. Shanema, the pasuk says, "Befigoi voi," anybody that encounters him, and that means mikol mokem. Anybody as well could assume that position of the Goyal Adam through the Bezdin and also avenge for the blood. So therefore, over here we see that the Torah is saying regarding the way the Goyal Adam, a relative, kills this person. It's not only a relative; it includes even someone else, and there's a special ribui for this because it says befigoi voi. So both Ritzeach and Goyal Adam are an exception, and we don't apply that regarding any other Chiyuv Misa in the Torah. There, you do have to fulfill it literally. The Gemara continues the discussion regarding the subject here. When the Torah says something, are we supposed to take the lashon of the pasuk literally or not? So, don't we have to translate and apply what it says in the pasuk exactly the way it says, like Shmuel said? But we learned in a Mishnah regarding a Ben Seirer Umayre. This is a son of Ben Seirer Umayre that about bar mitzvah age, he's stealing and he's doing things that we'll learn later here in the Masech all the details about the Ben Seirer Umayre that it's chayiv misa. So the Mishnah says, Haya echad mehem gidim. If one of his parents, his father or his mother of the Ben Seirer Umayre is a gidim, one of their hands is amputated, or ilaim, or mute, or chiger, or limping, or suma, or blind, or cheresh, or deaf. Einoi nasa ben seirer umayre. You cannot apply the halacha ben seirer umayre to their son. Why? Shenemar, because there's a pasuk where it says v'tofsu by avev imay. So the father or mother grabs him. So that means v'lei gidmet. They have to be able to grab him with their hand, not if the hand is amputated. Then it says v'yitziu, I say. They have to be able to walk out and take him out. That's v'lei chigrin. Not if they can't walk out regularly, if they're limping. And then v'amru, it says that they come and they speak to the bezdin. That's v'loi ilmin, not if they're mute. V'neinu zeh, this is our son. V'loi sumin, not if they can't see that this is their son. And then they go on and they say, einenu shemeh b'keleinu, he's not listening to our voice. V'loi chershin, that means not if they're deaf. So what do we see over here? That we take each part of the pasuk literally. So my time, why are we darshaning the pasuk this way to exclude a case where the father or the mother, one of these things don't apply to them? Lav, don't you think we shouldn't be in krakadichsiv? That from here I can learn out, like Shmuel says, that when it says something in the pasuk, it has to be taken literally. It's not just a description of how it's done, but it's lav dafke. No, it is dafke. Says the Gemara loy. There's no raya from the case of Ben Seirer Umayre. Shani Hasam, over there it's different. The Kule Kra Yiseirehu. This entire pasuk, the whole description, V'tafsa Bayav V'ima, is all extra. The pasuk says what the Ben Seirer Umayre is. It says what his Chiyuv Misa is. The whole description, the whole pasuk is extra, and therefore we darshan every word in the pasuk. Another source the Gemara brings for this shaila, whether you're supposed to take what it says in the pasuk literally or not. So Tashema, it says in the pasuk, it says in the Braise here, maybe it's a Mishnah here, it's also later in the Masechta, B'nigei to the Ir Anidachas, a city that the entire city served Avodah Zarah. So in the pasuk there, it describes that you have to take all of the possessions that are in the city. You have to gather it into the center of the city, into the rechayiv, into the street in the center of the city, and you have to burn everything. So the Mishnah says, "Ein la rechayiv." If there is no street in the center of the city, so then ein asas ir anidachas. It can't be turned into this ir anidachas that everyone gets the chiyuv misa and the burning of everything, because pasuk says there's a street and it doesn't have a rechayiv, so you can't apply it. Devrei Rabbi Shmuel. That's what Rabbi Shmuel says. Rabbi Kiva argues, Ein la rechayiv, if you don't have that street, so Eisen la rechayiv. So then you could establish that street, you make it right now, and then you can make it into a Ir Anidachas. Okay, so what does Gemara say? Ad kan pligi. What's their argument? Elo the marsav v'rachayv demei kar bi'inon. Rabbi Shmuel says there has to be a street there from the beginning in order for it to be any dachas. Umarsav Rabbi Akiva says rachayv da hashtanami demei kar dami. If you'll establish and you'll make a road now and you'll be able to fulfill what it says in the pasuk now, it's like it was there before. Aval the kula alma being a kroked. Everybody agrees that since in the pasuk it says that you bring everything into the chayva shel ir, that you bring it into the street, it has to be fulfilled literally, like the pasuk said. It's not just stama description; it means literally. Like Shmuel said before, that when it says yada edim, it means literally the hand. Says the Gemara Tanoihi. This whole shaila we're discussing here is actually a machlokes Tanoim regarding another halacha as well. The Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah. And this is regarding the mitzayda, that when the tara of a mitzayda, so there's the bloods of the carbon that have to be placed on a certain section in his ear or in his hand or his feet. So another Mishnah here says, Ein loy boyen yad. If he does not have this tip of his finger, or boyen regel, the tip of his toes, or oizen yomanis, the right ear that the blood has to be placed on, if he doesn't have that, so then ein loy tara lamas. So he can never be purified, because this is the purification, and if you can't fulfill what the pasuk says, so there's no tara for him. So you see here, the Tanna Kama says that it has to be fulfilled literally as the Torah said. You can't just place it on an area in his body that's approximately, if it's not the ear, so then in that area. It has to be literally. However, Rabbi Eliezer says, it doesn't have to be literally. If you don't have the tip of the hand or the toes or the ear, so you place it in that location, in that place. And that's enough. Rab Shimon says, if he doesn't have it on the right hand, or on the right toe, or the right ear, so then you fulfill the same also on the left. So both according to Rab Shimon and Rabbi Eliezer, you see that what it says in the pasuk does not have to be fulfilled literally, but according to the Tanna Kama, it does. That's what's Tanoim, Machlokes Tanoim.